Welcome to my channel. We will continue with faith stories by interviewing my mom, who is visiting with us from Newfoundland. Mom, thank you for being willing to share this story about our family's history. Could you tell us a bit about what was going on with Rod and the illness that you discovered that he had, and then how God intervened?
Well, Rod was just a little boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And one day we were sitting on the sofa, looking out through the living room window, and he was just talking and just like a little boy would. And all of a sudden his arm dropped and his speech was garbled, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. So I just kind of grabbed him and said, "What's wrong?" And that was it. He was fine. It just happened like that. And so I just wondered maybe what the trouble was, but I really didn't know. And
Did it happen more than once?
Yes, it happened the second time. Again, his arm kind of just dropped and got weak, and his voice, his speech was just kind of garbled. And I thought, "Is something wrong here? We need to take him to the doctor and find out what's wrong." So in taking him to my family doctor, he referred us to a neurosurgeon, or a neurologist actually, and his name was Dr. Jacob. And so we went to see Dr. Jacob, and I explained to him what had happened. And he said, well, maybe we should admit him to hospital, have him admitted, and we'll do some tests and just check out and see what we can find. So we did that. Rod dressed and thought he was going on a holiday, I think, with his little suitcase, and he went off, not really realizing that it was hospital. But he did fine. He was there for about 4 or 5 days, and they did a series of tests and to check out and see, what they could find was wrong. And there was one test, the EEG, I think it's called the EEG, which tests the electro activity in the brain. And that one test showed abnormal brain function. And so they came to the conclusion that maybe he had epilepsy. So they said, we'll try him on a drug, and the drug was called Dilantin, which we took him home, and we put him on the Dilantin for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But all while he was on the Dilantin, he was sick, his stomach pain, and he just cried with pain in his belly every time he took each day that he took the drug. So after about 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was, we said,
did it help did he have any episodes?
No, that was the only 2 episodes that he had.
Yeah.
And so after 2 or 3 weeks with him suffering with his bellyache, and every time he took the drug, crying when he had the pain, we thought, we need to do something. We can't keep giving him this drug if it's not going to, it's going to make him ill. And so we talked about it between ourselves, and we thought, we're going to take this to the Lord. We're going to pray about it, and we're going to ask God to touch Rod, and we're going to take him off the drug and just see how he gets on. So we did that. We had prayer with Rod, and we prayed, and we just believed that God was going to touch him and that he wouldn't need this drug. So we took him off the drug, and he did fine. He didn't have any more episodes, and his belly got better. But we had another appointment to take him back to Dr. Jacob, and when the time came to do it, I was very apprehensive because, I thought, what is this doctor going to think? We're a bunch of quacks or whatever, and maybe he'll say, well, you don't put him on the drug, I won't want to see him anymore. I didn't know what he would say. So I was very anxious going to the doctor, and we went anyway, and I took Rod back with me, and we just had a little chat, and I explained to him how this drug was reacting and giving him this bad stomach. And I thought, so I said, my husband and I said, I don't know if you believe in prayer, but I said, we prayed for our son, and we decided that we would let God take care of it, and we would take him off the drug and see how he got on. And he just looked at me and smiled, and he said, he's your son, and you know him, he was really having pain in his belly and it was bothering him, and you have to make the decision what to do. But I want you to know that if you want to come back and see me, that I will see you, and we may be able to try another drug if he keeps having these seizures. So that was fine, and I just felt so relieved that he reacted the way he did. And so we took him off the drugs, and I kept the bottle of drugs actually for years, just to show, that we still had them, but we were believing in faith that God would touch him. And Rod never had any more seizures after. That was just 2 episodes that he had. And he's now 51 years old, and he's never had a seizure since. So I think God intervened, and he touched Rod. I really believe that he did that, and touched his body, and said he didn't need that drug, and that we were willing in faith to believe that he would do that.
And obviously it didn't affect his mind in any way either, because he was able to continue with his education.
It didn't affect his brain in any way.
And now he's just
graduated
received
with
his doctorate
in education.
Yeah.
So I thank God. And I keep reminding Rod, him, because he was so young that he can't really remember it, and I keep reminding him that God did touch him and did heal him, and he didn't need the drugs after.
And we talked a little bit before that how later he did have some other health problems, and he had to have a couple of kidney
surgeries for
kidneys.
He was born with a narrowing of the ureter going into the kidney, and he had to have 2 surgeries for that as well. And he was older then, and after having 1 surgery, he knew what he had to face again to have the second one, because the first one didn't work. But again, before we knew we had to take him back to the hospital, and we prayed again, and we actually had a boarder staying with us then, a friend of ours, Dawson Orm, and I remember we knelt by Rod's bed and we prayed before he went into the hospital a second time, that this time it would be successful and he would be fine.
And I remember also, even in children's church, in church, I used to stand in for him, and the teacher and the kids would pray over me on Rod's behalf, that he would come out of the hospital and everything would go well with the surgery.
Second time around it was fine, and actually he had a tube in, a drainage tube and a leg bag type thing, and it was getting towards summer, and he was very anxious to be able to swim, and he had the tube taken out, and I was kind of thinking maybe you should wait, you should have this hole kind of in your side, you could get infected and all this, and he said, no, I need to swim. So we just let him go, and I think we're down in the park at that time, and he went out to swim, and he never had that kidney problem since. So that was another time that we believe God came through and touched his body and healed him, and we're so thankful for that.
Well, thank you, Mom, for sharing the story. I'm hoping that these stories will encourage people to know that God is real, and that He is a personal God, and that prayer is powerful, and He's able and willing to answer our prayers. And
as a side note, I could add that just a few years ago, when I started going to our ladies group on Tuesday mornings, I met this little lady, a little Indian lady. Her name was Mary, and she was a real prayer warrior and just a sweet little lady. And I came to know her and realized that she was Mary Jacob. So she was the wife of this doctor. And in talking with her, I found out they were both Christians. And so I told her about the episode with Rod and how I went back to her husband. And she was just so happy to hear it, and I'm sure she related it to him too. And I was happy to be able
I'm sure
to,
he was very encouraged to hear the result of that.
That's right.
Of that situation from years back.
Yeah, it was great to meet her and be able to relay that story to her. She's just so pleased to be able to tell her husband that.
Well, thank you, Mom, very much.
You're welcome.